What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It's Double Take. I'm Alex Safey, here with my brother John, and we are super excited to be finally back in front of the mics. We got back to BC a couple months ago, and finally it's been a couple weeks. We just started the NBA season 2, so we're super pumped about that. What's up, John? How you doing?
Hey, man. I'm doing great, Alex. The NBA is back, and Tuesday night, I was just feeling, overwhelmed with schoolwork and upset because I didn't write this essay. And then I realized we got the NBA right now. We get to watch all the best games, and now that the Warriors are gone, we got some parity in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Because of Clay going out, the Warriors are not looking too good, which we will be talking about later. And all the player movement. Anthony Davis went to the Lakers. Kawhi went to the Clippers. Russell Westbrook on the Rockets.
Really,
because of all this, the league exploded.
Yeah, just a
and
crazy
now it's
summer.
It's a really exciting season that's about to take
one of the craziest summers that in recent history. Probably, honestly, it might have been the craziest summer ever in NBA. In NBA offseason. So, John, what are some topics we're going to be getting at tonight?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We got, the Warriors, who just got blown out by about 30 points to the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to talk about their awful start. Some of the new surprise teams after this first week. Hint, hint, the Miami boys are in here. We got the new favorite team in the East and all the other new look teams that add another star this offseason. But first, what are we talking about, Alex?
Yeah, before all that, we got to introduce a topic that, I don't think we really give enough attention to on the show, Double Take. LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers.
We do not talk about LeBron enough.
Obviously a joke. Anyway, so, obviously with this offseason coming in, they finally got that second superstar. They got Anthony Davis. They made that big trade. They got some other pieces, Danny Green. They re-signed KCP, LaRondo. They had Boogie, although he got hurt. Jared Dudley, Avery Bradley. So, little bit of a new
PC
roster.
Eagle.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Shout out the Eagles.
Came out to a football game to hang out with us this past
a couple weeks ago. Anyway, so they got a new roster. So, obviously LeBron has been hyping it up on social media and stuff like that.
Like he usually does.
And game 1, we were super excited. We had the Clippers versus the Lakers. The Clippers, although Paul George didn't play, they're still with Kawhi, and then their other surrounding players from last year was going to be, we were definitely stoked to see that. But the Lakers suffered a 10-point loss to the Clippers, and then in game 2, I think they had a pretty good win, which was a 9-point win versus the Jazz. Davis and LeBron both played well. So considering all of this, John, what do you think the Lakers' ceiling is for this season?
That's an easy question to answer. Obviously, when you have LeBron James on your team, and especially with a guy like Anthony Davis, when you have 2 MVP caliber players, the ceiling is championship. But if you were to ask me, realistically, I think that their 2 games were actually pretty revealing for where they might end up this season. They lost to the Clippers, even without Paul George. I think they are a hair behind the Clippers, and they still comfortably beat the Jazz, right? They beat the Jazz by 9, but throughout the game, they pretty much held on to that lead for most of it. It was a comfortable win. So I think they're definitely above the tier of Western teams like Utah, Portland, Dallas, San Antonio, some of those middle-tier teams, but I don't think they're quite as good as the Clippers. I think, like last year, we had the Warriors and there was everyone else. I do not think that there's any team that's like that with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. But I do think the Clippers are a clear-cut favorite this year. We got Kawhi, Paul George. That duo, along with some great coaching and an insane amount of just great defenders, shooters, and role players on this team, I don't think anyone is on their level currently. And another thing about the Lakers is that I'm starting to worry about is LeBron. It's year 17. Me and Alex, we grew up watching him from 2011 to 14 on the Miami Heat, and he looked unstoppable. He was probably. He was easily our best player. He was the best player in the league at the time, and
he's been until last year.
Yeah,
I would say
we had LeBron at the center of our team, and we surrounded him with a bunch of older guys: Ray Allen, Shane Battier, Udonis Haslem, Birdman, even Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade were older than him. Now we got LeBron James is he really the number one star? I guess you could call him, 1B to Davis's 1A. And now we got a bunch of younger guys surrounding him. But I don't think they're quite where the Clippers are. And the reason is because, one, LeBron, he's still great. He just dropped 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists last game. But I do think that he is starting to fall off, I don't want to say the cliff, but he's starting to slowly decline. This is Twilight LeBron. This isn't 2013 LeBron. And I also think that their role players are just so bad that behind Davis and behind LeBron, I don't know. I mean, who's their third best player? I don't know.
Probably Danny Green. But I agree with, I think, a lot of the things you said. One thing I've noticed just from watching the first 2 games of the season, and I guess just compared to kind of the LeBron that we're used to seeing since he went to the Lakers. That last season in Cleveland was really probably, honestly, that was the best basketball I've ever seen.
That was the best LeBron I've seen.
Game 1 of the 2018 finals was, I've never seen anything like that.
Until JR threw it away.
But and then coming into going back off of last season and this season, I think a difference that I've noticed kind of is LeBron. It's more about we just see flashes of him. It's not as much as where you'd see for him he would dominate the whole game or even the whole season or even the whole playoffs. I think with this LeBron, it seems more like he's kind of, I don't even want to say that he's not as hungry, but it almost seems like that. And it reminded me of Rocky, the movie Rocky 3, where he just seems like he's at a point in his career where I don't know if I'm sure he's comfortable. He doesn't care as much about chasing rings as he did when he left to Miami and then even trying to get one in Cleveland. But I don't know. And then hopefully, obviously, once you get into the playoffs, LeBron's a different animal. Let's not overreact either.
Yeah, and I would disagree. I don't want to say he's not hungry. What I will say is that he's being more intentional about how he uses his flashes, like you said, right? LeBron this year, he knows that he's not going to be able to give it all and last through the playoffs. If he wants to make it to the finals, he's going to play that Greg Popovich San Antonio Spurs game. He's going to rest when he can. He's going to try and take a back seat if he can, let Davis take over some of the scoring load.
The load management.
But right, exactly. But I just think that we're seeing smarter, wiser LeBron, and it's because, he's not what he was 5-10 years ago.
Certainly.
But to address the other LA team, the Clippers. How do you feel about the Clippers, Alex? They were a 48-win team last year with a lot of defensive toughness. They took the Warriors to 6 games last year, and that was without Kawhi and Paul George. Looking this good with Kawhi, how good do you think they can be once they add Paul George?
So they're definitely, you said there's no team like the way the Warriors were the last couple of years, as that one dominant team that you just know is definitely going to be in the finals and probably win it. I would say I don't think the Clippers are on that level, but if you're just looking at their roster and then comparing them to the other rosters, and I feel like this summer when they got Kawhi and Paul George, and then the Lakers had gotten Anthony Davis and Danny Green, I'm like, oh, it's going to be a battle of LA. It should be fun. But I don't know, whatever's happened in the last couple months, my mind has kind of changed, and I definitely think that at least they're my pick to win the finals, because they have the team that they had last year was a 48-win team. Can you believe that? They had Pat Bev,
without Kawhi.
Lou Will. Right. Obviously, they did have for some of the season Tobias Harris and then also Danilo Gallinari.
Right.
But they were a very tough and defensive team, and then you add Kawhi, who's probably the best player in the world right now. That's who I would say. And Paul George, who last year was an MVP caliber player. So, and there's a lot of times when you add players like that, for example, the Rockets, they've added Westbrook to their team. You have questions about how good they can be because of maybe the fit. Whereas the Clippers, I think they don't really have any of those issues. And I could be wrong, but that's what I see so far. So,
yeah. Just one last thing before we get into it. I just think my number one thing with the Lakers is that, like you said, talking about the Clippers, how deep they are. You look at the Lakers, their depth chart is So we got LeBron, AD, Kuzma's injured right now, and Rondo's injured. So once those dudes come back, we know they're gonna be. I think they will be like I said, one of the top teams. Not quite as good as the Clippers, but JaVale McGee, a good role player. But they got other guys on their bench: Dwight Howard, Avery Bradley, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has he's shooting. Has he made a shot yet? He had 1 point in their first two games.
Off a free throw. He's played 48 minutes in the first 2 games combined and has 1 point to show for it.
So he is just, I don't know why they're paying him as much money. Quinn Cook, so, nothing against him, solid role player, but is he a good, backup point guard? Not really. Troy Daniels, Alex Caruso, Jared Dudley, like, their roster, if you compare that to Patrick Beverley, Landry Shamet, Zubac, Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell, Patrick Patterson, all these guys on the Clippers who are just younger, better at defense, good shooters, like, they just have a much better roster that gels. I mean, and you look at the scoring versus the Clippers, LeBron had 18 and 8 assists, AD had 25 points, and Danny Green had 28. No one else was in double figures. And then versus Utah, LeBron had 32, Davis had 21, and then their third guy was Troy Daniels, a guy who a lot of people probably haven't even never heard of.
He's a good shooter, but
yeah, he had 15 points.
The Clippers,
but it's
much deeper.
Yeah, once you have LeBron and AD, obviously you're going to be a great team. Just there is a much bigger drop off than from Kawhi and Paul George to their next players, and that's why I think the Clippers. I give them the slight edge over the Lakers.
And then so one last thing about the LA dynamic between those 2 teams I've just found interesting, just in general, is we've seen LeBron go to the Lakers last year to LA, and as far as the fans and just LA, just like LA is a Lakers town, that team has always just been, as far as the fans will always identify with that team. And the Clippers, it's been funny because at their game, at least versus the Lakers, there was boos for Kawhi and Paul George because of all the Lakers fans.
They get booed at a home game.
So I think there's kind of a trade-off because the Clippers are a more competent organization, and you can see that when Kawhi and Paul, they were able to sign Kawhi, trade for Paul George. Then also with the surrounding role players, you can tell that they obviously.
Look what they turned.
They're better. They have Doc Rivers.
They flipped Chris Paul and Blake Griffin into this assortment of just young great players and draft picks.
And what I think is funny though is they have on the court it's night and day. It's not night and day, but versus the Lakers, I think I would take that Clippers team. And then you look at the Lakers, who at least their bench is not as good, and their organization definitely I would say is not as good right now as the Clippers. But they have still all the fans and they just kind of quote unquote own the town. So I just think there's an interesting dynamic with on court versus off the court, and what we're actually going to see happen. The Clippers will win, and there's probably still going to be way more Lakers fans.
But
anyway,
we'll see about that. So now we're going to start off with a new segment on our show called Our Take on the Hot Take, where we respond to a hot take that's happened in the past week or two, and.
From someone who's notable.
Yeah, from someone. So tonight, ours is going to come from Charles Barkley. But before we get into this one, I'll just say that this one might have, this one didn't age well. Me and Alex, a few hours ago, were going through the show, and we were talking about what we were going to talk about. And so our hot take was Charles Barkley saying on TNT a few nights ago, earlier in the week, that the Warriors are not making the playoffs, right? So before the game, Barkley said he thought they'd be a 7 or 8 seed. He then proceeded to watch the first half of the game versus the Clippers. And then he said this in front of Klay Thompson. He said, "Yeah, you know what? I actually made a mistake. I don't think you guys are making the playoffs." So this was a hot take. But coming after this, after we put this segment up, they just lost to 28 to Oklahoma City Thunder, who is a team that I did not think would be very good, but clearly they're capable of blowing out Steph Curry and D'Angelo Russell and the rest of that bunch by 30. So, Alex, what's your take on Charles Barkley's hot take? What do you think?
So I was actually, as soon as he said it, and I didn't need to see. First off, I strongly agree with him, and I don't think I needed to see the Clippers destroy them or even OKC beat them. Although OKC beating them is even more of a telling factor about how good they're going to be this season. Because honestly, going into this season, I was just truly surprised by everyone really still believing in this team, who lost not only Kevin Durant, because we know they've been good without Durant. They lost Klay Thompson, and he's going to be out for the season with the ACL. They also lost Andre Iguodala, was a key role player for them. I don't even call him a role player. He's probably more. He did start a lot of games for them.
He was a Finals MVP for their team.
They don't have Sean Livingston. They just lost a lot of the veterans, and obviously losing Durant and Klay is not going to help either. So a lot of people were just like thinking that because it seems like it makes sense that they wouldn't be good. Everyone's like, "Whoa, guys, don't sleep on the Warriors. They still have Curry. Curry could go off, have like a Harden. He's gonna have those Harden usage rates. We're gonna see him." Put up those 2016 numbers again. But I just think you look at their roster and it's very clear, I think, that they're actually not that good. I mean, so I'm looking up right now. They added D'Angelo Russell, he's good, but at the same time, him and Curry, I think they can play together, but it's not the best dynamic.
A good fit. Two great offensive players. They could pass, they could shoot.
That's true.
Defensively is where I take it.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have defense, which is non-existent. Okay, then you also have Draymond. But then you look, all right, Willie Cauley-Stein. After that, Glenn Robinson, Jordan Poole, Marcus Chris, Kevin Looney, Damian Lee, Amari Spellman. Like, they have literally Alec Burks, no bench. Just no bench. And shout out to Kai Bowman, who's, BC left BC last year. He's on there.
Maybe Kai Bowman, former BC Eagle, will start getting some play.
Hopefully he can come out
on the former champs.
But I was just truly really surprised that their over under was 48.5. Like 48-win team, that's a good team, And definitely not like this team. Obviously, they have Curry and they have Russell, and they were good the last 5 years. But on top of that, I think a factor that no one really considered is they've been in the finals for 5 straight years. I think halfway through the season, or maybe 75% through, they're gonna realize like, okay, we don't even have a shot of maybe it's not even making the playoffs. And I could see them just like shutting it down and waiting for next year, because next year they'll come back. They'll have Klay and Steph. Hopefully they can put together more decent bench, and they could go and try to win it next year. But this year, just coming in, I was just super surprised that anyone was really picking them. So I definitely agree with Barkley that they're not going to make the playoffs.
So I would disagree with the hot take. The Warriors aren't making the playoffs. I would still pick them right now. I would still pick them. But yeah, it is bold, and I'm a little afraid after watching them get killed by OKC. But at first, going into the year, I looked at the teams. I saw the West. We got the two LA teams, Lakers, Clippers. You got Denver, Houston, Utah, Portland, and then I think for the 7 and 8, I thought there was a lot of teams fighting for it. Right? It looks like right now Dallas might be the favorite to be in the playoffs. The way Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis are looking, I loved New Orleans coming into the season. I loved the team that they put around Zion, and unfortunately Zion's injured. So I think I might rule them out there. They've played 3 close games, but the issue is that, they 3 close games against good teams, but they're 0-3. And I think, had they had Zion,
they could go a long way.
Had they had Zion, there would definitely be a team that I would choose. But being out 4 to 6 weeks in the West, if you get behind a couple of games, that could mean the season. I mean, that's how close, that's how good all these teams in the West are.
I agree.
So, I think I would put the Warriors over the Spurs because of, I was thinking about coming into the year, all right, the team that won 73 games was Steph, Klay, and Draymond Green, right?
And Iguodala.
And Andre Iguodala, and they had Harrison Barnes, and great role players, and Steve Kerr's system. I thought Steve Kerr's system, we got Steph, Klay, Dre, and now you added D'Angelo Russell. Those 4 guys with not a great bench, I thought should definitely be able to get you at least the 8th spot. But then looking at it, you say, all right, Klay Thompson's not going to make it back this year. A huge addition, of subtraction, I would say, to their team, because the pressure that he would take. I mean, same thing when they had Kevin Durant, Klay, and Steph. The issue was the other teams don't know who they're going to guard. And that's what took so much pressure off. Now, Steph, you watch that first night and they're playing the Clippers, and it's like, okay, they're throwing everyone at him because they could double team Steph, and guard D'Angelo Russell. And who else? Who are they passing to? Who's going to score for the Warriors? So I do think that Steph Curry and D'Angelo, offensively, I think it's there. Draymond Green still. I think there's still some acquisitions to be made. Maybe in the buyout market, or if they want to push it. But the one way I do see them missing it is if, like you said, Alex, halfway through the year, if they're not trying to overuse Curry. They just went to 5 straight finals. They have nothing to prove. They had a great run, and this is a rebuilding year for them. But I still think they're good enough to sneak in as an 8 seed because of how good they are offensively. I just think the middle of the pack teams in the West. Sacramento, they just lost Marvin Bagley. Like I said, New Orleans losing Zion. I don't think the Spurs are that good. They're still playing an old school, form of basketball when it's going the other direction. With efficiency and 3-point shooting. I still think that the Warriors will slide in as an 8 spot.
Yeah, I think I have to disagree just because I just think you're underrating the Spurs, man. The Spurs have never, under Greg Popovich, who's now coached over 20 seasons. I think he's in his 23rd or 24th. And he has never lost in the regular season, or never won less than 47 games. 47.
Right. And the first time they won under 50 was last season. So they're going.
I think it was 2 seasons ago. But anyway,
they're hitting the decline, right? This isn't the Duncan, Parker, Ginobili Spurs. All right,
you're right. But guess what? Last year they won 48 games.
Right.
48, and guess what? They added their starting point guard back, DeJounte Murray, who's a great defensive player. He actually was all-defensive first team his last healthy season. So there's no way adding him. And they've added like Trey Lyles, DeMar Carroll. Those guys will be fine off the bench, I think. But there's no way you add him back and get worse. So I think they're definitely going to win. I picked them probably to win, I think, around 48 games, 49 games. And that should definitely be enough for a playoff berth in the West. Although the West is going to be very competitive. And then looking back at those other teams, the Pelicans, I think they're too young. Although I do like their roster, obviously. I like Sacramento a lot, but obviously we haven't seen a lot of good stuff from them in the first couple games.
Yeah, they're 0-3 currently.
And then Bagley got injured. He's going to be out for a while. So I definitely think I would put my money on the Spurs to make it, and certainly over the Warriors.
Yeah, I think my 7-8 spot, I'm still picking, the I guess my last 6 or my last 3 spots, Portland, Dallas, and Golden State. That's who I got. I'm going to still roll with Golden State. I'm going to bank off Steph Curry and D'Angelo Russell having just great chemistry and great offense, but definitely has not looked great so far with their 0-2 start.
Definitely. I mean, crushed by OKC. So anyway,
Oklahoma City.
Moving on. Couple games into this season, this NBA season.
1 week.
And obviously I think this happens every season where you come in and there's expectations and sometimes there's a lot of surprises that come with those, counter those expectations. So let's look at who surprised you so far this season, John. What's a big surprise?
Come on, there's one answer to this. The Miami Heat, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
We came into this year and honestly, every year I always know because of the great coaching, great organization, I know we're going to be, competitive. But how competitive? I mean, the last time we were very good, I guess, let's say it was 2016, we were a 3 seed in the East, top 3 team.
That's right.
And that was the, Wade, Chris Bosh, that was the post-LeBron Miami Heat team. But since then, we haven't been great. Last year, we had our fun with, One Last Dance and Dwayne Wade. And,
shout out.
And we didn't make the playoffs, and we really should have. Some injuries kind of pushed us. We were a game out of it. And coming into this year, with our, we lost Josh Richardson, but we did acquire Jimmy Butler because of that. And so far, Jimmy Butler just had his his newborn daughter.
Yeah.
So he's missed our first 3 games. But the way we looked in our first game, we blew the Memphis Grizzlies out, who the Memphis Grizzlies are supposed to be the worst team in the NBA. But the way we did it without Jimmy Butler, we started 2 rookies, Tyler Hero, who we took in the first round from out of Kentucky, who's looking like a great defensive player.
None better.
And
Kendrick Nunn, an
undrafted 24-year-old who I'd never heard of until this man dropped 40 points in the preseason. And he dropped 24. He had 24 points in his first game. So, obviously, like I said, we're playing a young Memphis Grizzlies team. But the way we blew them out was awesome, especially seeing us start 2 rookies on our team. And especially the fact that we didn't have our best player, Jimmy Butler, with us. And then we played Milwaukee, who had just come off a comeback win against Houston. Houston was up by around 16 in that game. I was watching, and you blinked your eyes for a second, and Milwaukee came all the way back. So we were playing in Milwaukee and we were down 21 points, and then we came back on them. Obviously, if you watch the game or if you look at the stats, we missed a lot of late game free throws, and the game went to overtime. But that's Milwaukee Bucks. They have Giannis Antetokounmpo. They have the MVP from last year. They won 60 games. And Miami Heat, we beat them without Jimmy Butler. It's like, we were talking about this yesterday, Alex. We almost forgot that we had Jimmy Butler. I mean, once he comes back, it's going to be great. And as of now, we are playing the Minnesota Timberwolves. We were down early. We took the lead. And right now, we're currently trailing them by 6 points with 23 seconds left. So we'll update. We'll have a live update on that. But still, I think the Miami Heat, the way they've come out, I think a lot of people looked at the East and saw the Sixers and the Bucks, and that's it. But I do think Miami is I think we're the strong argument. We have a strong argument to be made as the third best team in there, and I put us slightly ahead of the Celtics, the Pacers, some of those middle tier East teams. But the East just is nowhere near as good as the West.
And I think
that's what I'll say.
It's just been a lot of fun to watch this very young Heat team. And the first game, the thing that really struck me was, obviously the last couple of years, or honestly really for as long as we've watched the Heat, the Heat have always had Wade, and Wade has always been, for the most part, like that veteran presence and just like kind of our sure thing. And then this year, you look at the roster, and especially the first game without Butler, it was a bunch of young guys. We had 2 undrafted rookies get a lot of minutes. Also, shout out to the Heating scouting, just the way they've scouted the past couple of years, because Look at the players that have kind of come out of nowhere and just been good on the Heat. Tyler Johnson, Hassan Whiteside, Kendrick Nunn now.
Derek Jones Jr.
Yeah,
and then we love getting these.
We drafted Josh
guys.
Richardson second round. He's a great player. He's now a starter. He's a very good starter in the NBA. And then obviously also I think the Tyler Hero pick will pan out to be a steal in this past year's draft.
Rookie of the year.
So obviously there's that, which has been fun. But now looking at Justice Winslow and how he's kind of like the veteran or the leader on the team, which is it's almost weird because I've just always seen him as like Rook one from his first year, and but yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun to watch. And although I won't say I'm too surprised because I really truly believe in this team.
For everyone else, that's my surprise start. No one expected us to be this good. So Alex, who is your surprise team that started off pretty hot in the first week of the season?
I think if it's not the Heat, it has to be the Phoenix Suns, who in their first game, playing versus the Kings, who the Kings last year almost made the playoffs. I think they're a very good team. They, not even that they won, they blew the Kings out. They were up 20, they won 20 by 29 points. So that was one win. It's like, okay, whatever, maybe the Kings are just bad. Let's look. The next night, they go to overtime with the Denver Nuggets, who last year won over 50 games. Another
top team in the West.
Top team in the West. So it's like, all right, there's two things. Interesting. And
who did they play, though? Was that last night? Who did they play?
Last night they played the LA Clippers.
Oh, the Clippers.
The Clippers, who we've both just talked about and raved about how they're probably going to be the best team this season. And they beat them, the Suns. These are the Suns who last year had the worst record in the league, who have honestly been a joke of a franchise for the last couple
Vegas,
years.
just so you guys know, Vegas valued them with the worst odds to win the title at plus 30,000.
I'm gonna put some money on them, man.
Yeah,
Devin Booker is getting buckets.
Right.
But anyway, so I'm definitely surprised between those 3 games, although they're only 2-1, not 3-0. The fact that they blew out the Kings, almost beat the Nuggets in overtime, and then beat the Clippers, who have the best player in the world, and then obviously everything else, like unreal. So just looking at their team, I think a big acquisition, kind of underrated, is Ricky Rubio, who I think probably doesn't get enough credit at this point. He was I think a couple of years ago, he was probably overrated. Now I think he's definitely underrated.
I got him on my fantasy team. He's doing pretty well.
Because he's fresh off this summer FIBA basketball. He was the MVP.
Right.
Of
a lot of players come out of that FIBA, the international tournament, and some of them, like I remember a few years ago, Goran Dragic was playing for his home team. He came back to the Miami Heat, and he had a great year for us. So
he was hot, So I think that's going to be good because obviously they haven't really had a good point guard in a while,
right?
To go along with Devin Booker, and then Devin Booker, he's fresh off of not playing any meaningful basketball,
right,
in FIBA and complaining about getting double teamed in pickup. Nah,
Right.
I'm just kidding. But anyway, Devin Booker's someone who I've always believed in. He always obviously once someone drops 70, they're special.
Does
So
get
they got
hate for
those
his
guys.
defense though.
Yeah, exactly. But also their coaching. They haven't had a good coach in a while. Now they have Monty Williams, their new coach.
All right.
So I think it should be fun. And obviously, what's his face? DeAndre Ayton.
Right. Who's
He's
just
now
been suspended
He's
for
not-
25
He's
games.
not suspended for 25 games. But, they have Aaron Baines coming in. Aaron Baines, nothing crazy, but he's a solid
But if you look at
solid
that
player
team,
in the NBA,
look at that team that beat that just beat the Clippers. It's just shocking.
Yeah, it doesn't make
Rubio
much
was
sense.
out that game, and DeAndre Ayton. So 2 starters were out. But the next man up, Aaron Baines in this case, showed up and and they ended up winning. They beat the
Yeah.
Clippers, who,
So that's
like we
the
said,
deal.
we think is going to be the best team this year.
And honestly, I'm happy. I'm happy to see Devin Booker finally, be on a team that might be competitive this year. Hopefully, I would be happy to see them make that push for the 8th spot. Although the West is extremely loaded, as we've already spoken about. So yeah, those two teams have been off to a pretty
Right.
hot start. Both
Just quick update: the Miami Heat just suffered our first loss of the year.
Bummer.
We're 2-1. We lost, but what I will say is that we were down in this game. We came back, and it was on the second night. We're on the road, second night of a back-to-back. We had a late overtime game yesterday, and sometimes those games are the best.
nothing to go crazy about.
Once we get Jimmy Butler back, though, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna be right back at
Be
the
fun.
top of the East.
That's
All right. Next up, Alex. Do you want to introduce?
Oh yes, this is something
Our
I
next segment.
I thought of a couple hours ago. I'm pretty proud of it. So in the NBA, there's a lot of young players, and a lot of them have a very high potential.
lot of
you-
young
You can
exciting
see
players
you can
this
see
year.
it almost as a stock market. So this is going to be a segment called the Young NBA Player Stock Market. So who, John, this year are you going to buy, and tell me who you're going to sell?
All right.
Or actually,
so,
why don't we start with both buys? So who you buy? Whose stock are you buying this year?
I'm buying Mr. Brandon Ingram, who just was traded. He was a part of the Anthony Davis trade. He was traded to the New Orleans Pelicans from the LA Lakers. And if you look at his first 3 games, there was a lot of questions about him.
Mm-hmm.
He was someone who, because he was injured last year on the Lakers, a lot of people didn't think that he was going to be a piece in the trade deal. They didn't think the Lakers could acquire Anthony Davis because of his injuries. It had to do something with like his lungs, or it was blood clots, right?
Yeah, blood clots.
Which was what ended Chris Bosh's career.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised when he got them. They were still able to make the trade.
Right, so Brandon Ingram, because of that, we heard, all right, the Pelicans, they don't want to trade Davis. They don't want to get Ingram back in the deal. And they ended up doing it. They got, obviously, Lonzo. They got Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart, along with some draft picks. And Brandon Ingram so far has looked great. Obviously, like I said earlier.
To my surprise,
they've looked-
I'll be honest.
They're 0-3, like I said earlier, but they were all close games. So they lost to Toronto on ring night, which was the defending champs. They got their rings the first game of the season. And Ingram dropped 22 points and 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Second game against Dallas, they lost by 6 points. So Dallas, I think, is just a more talented team, especially with the fact that the Pelicans don't have Zion Williamson, the number 1 pick in the draft right now because he's injured. And then Ingram had 25, 8, and 3. And then against Houston last game, he had 35 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, where did this come from, right? Like, this is a guy who people were questioning whether his career was going to be over because of the injury that he had just had. And he gets traded, and it's just another reason why I love the New Orleans Pelicans right now. I mean, once Zion comes back, you put
They're gonna be a
Zion
fun team.
with the score, with the shoot, with the scoring that Ingram's doing, with a young guy like, young good passer like Lonzo Ball, along with some older guys like Drew Holiday and Derek Favors, JJ Redick. I just think they have a good roster, and right now I'm buying Brandon Ingram stock.
Yeah, which honestly, man, I'm gonna take credit. I think I jinxed it. We were playing 2K, and I've been just talking trash about Ingram, and
Yeah.
so of course
yeah.
he has to come out here and make
Exactly.
me look like a fool. But yeah, so buys. This one's pretty obvious. I'm not even gonna pretend like this is anything smart. But Trae Young, I'm definitely buying his stock because he's
looking like a young Steph Curry right now.
Yeah, he is averaging in the first 2 games. His team is 2-0, the Hawks, and he's averaged 38.5 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds, shooting 55% from 3. Although he does have he's averaging 5 turnovers. That's kind of typical for younger players. I'm buying Trae Young stock. So when he got drafted, I was definitely, I didn't believe in him much. I thought he was too small. I didn't know that second half of his Oklahoma season wasn't as good as the first. I wasn't very high on him. And then obviously the first half of his NBA season his rookie season wasn't good either. And towards the end of the season, he really started putting together some crazy performances, pulling up from the logo and just knocking down shots. Yeah, and he really did. He was looking nice.
Came out of nowhere and made the Luka Doncic Rookie of the Year argument.
Yeah, well, it was, obviously Luka was still above him, but yeah.
Right. But did make it interesting towards the end of the season.
Made it interesting. So for him to come in this year and to just putting up these numbers in 2 games, it's not a big sample size, but I'm certainly buying his stock from those performances. So,
all right.
John,
who are you selling, Alex? Whose stock are you selling?
This is someone I just haven't felt great about in a while, and I'm going to actually, it's going to be 2 players. I do not... Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Some Boston hate. Let's hear it.
2 years ago, in that playoff series, obviously, they almost, beat the best player in the world, LeBron, as a rookie and a sophomore in the NBA. So when that happened, everyone was buying the stock, right? Everyone's like, oh, these kids are going to be good. They're going to be studs forever. Last season was disappointing. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors with that, with Kyrie and that just not being the best fit. But off these first 2 games, I've just finally gotten to the point where I don't know if Tatum will ever be as good as we thought he'd be. And the same goes for Brown. I mean, people were talking about Brown like, oh, he could be the next, Paul George or something. Like that was his ceiling. And Tatum, his shooting, he's still been a little bit inefficient. He just shot against the Knicks. He shot 29% from the field, which is pretty bad.
Yeah,
and
especially against the Knicks.
And he shot the game before. Okay, so his 3 games, he shot 36%, 36%, and 29%. So that's terrible for a guy who's supposed to be, a good shooting player. And then Brown, on the other hand, he shot a little bit better, but I just don't think he'll ever really pan out. So I'm selling Jason and Jaylen stock.
All right, I'm gonna follow up your lead with that. I'm also gonna pick a collection of young players from a team. I'm selling the Sacramento Kings.
No, come on, bro.
Me and Alex went back and forth about this, a few weeks ago. The Pelicans versus the Kings, and the Kings looked great last year. They had young De'Aaron Fox, Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield. That young core, Bogdanovich, right? That young core right there looked great, and with they added Harrison Barnes too. They were looking great. I think they were just out of the playoffs as like a 9 seed or 10 seed maybe. Mm-hmm. But this year, we had higher hopes for them. They're 0-3. Marvin Bagley did get hurt, but like we said earlier, the Phoenix Suns blew them out. No one expected them to be that great, and we all expected the Kings to be, a team that's fighting for the playoffs. So we had the Suns blow them out in the first game. They also lost by 10 to Portland, and then they lost to the Utah Jazz by 34 points. Or 33, I'm sorry. 33 points to the Jazz.
You hate to see it.
And I guess my thought process here is you just look at this. It'd be one thing if, they were getting buckets, but this game against the Jazz, De'Aaron Fox, 9 points. Buddy Hield, 3 points. And like I said, Marvin Bagley injured. But Buddy Hield, this is someone who said he was complaining. They just signed him to a contract extension, but he was complaining earlier and that if they didn't pay me, I'm gonna. Here, I have the code here. If they don't. So like I said, I want to be here, but if they don't want me here, I'll find somewhere else to be. So I think just that definitely threw their maybe the chemistry off a little bit. When one of your stars is threatening to take his talent elsewhere, right? Shortly after that. He was offered a 4-year deal worth $90 million. So all right, buddy, you got paid. Now let's see you. Let's see you play a little bit better. 3 points. Come on. He's getting paid $90 million.
I hate to see it, especially after guys get paid. That actually goes along kind of with Jaylen Brown, who I think is getting paid too much. I thought I liked the fact that the Kings paid Buddy because he made a good point. He said, name the last time a free agent that came to Sacramento, which is true. Who the Kings? If the Kings aren't going to pay Buddy,
of course,
you're not going to
definitely have paid him.
So,
Definitely.
but you know,
But now he's got to play.
yeah,
he's
these
gotta
guys
play
gotta
better
back it up.
instead of having 3 points.
So,
All right.
now moving
Next
on
up.
to before we wrap up the show, let's give a we like to look big picture for the season.
Especially.
What are your top 5 power rankings, John?
All right.
In the NBA, and then we'll discuss
These
it.
are my safe picks. These are definitely my locks to be at the top, to make the playoffs. Coming at number 1, we don't need to discuss this team very much anymore. The LA Clippers, like we said, they just got the Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard. They're going to be great, added to that collection of players and coaching. They're going to be great. That's my number 1. Number 2, someone we haven't talked about yet, who is very exciting, the Philadelphia 76ers, who just acquired Al Horford. They got him from the Celtics, and they're just massive. They got, they traded Jimmy Butler, and they got, one of our favorite Heat players, Josh Richardson. They stole him from us.
That's the only reason that I'll
right.
approve this pick.
So
because of Richardson.
We got Ben Simmons, right? A 6'9" point guard. I mean, he's really a power forward, but he plays point guard. He's got great passing skills. You go down, you got Tobias Harris, who they had last year, who was great for him after they acquired him after the trade deadline. Josh Richardson. They have Al Horford and Joel Embiid, 2 7-footers, 2 great defensive guys down low. They also got rookie Thibault, he's a great Matisse Thybulle. He's
NBA Twitter loves him.
Right, who everyone Twitter has been raving about him. They love him. He's a great defender. So this team, they're just super tall, and they're massive. They're tall. They're great defensively, and obviously when you have a guy like Joel Embiid, who some people you could make the argument is one of the most talented, one healthy players in the NBA.
Yeah.
And what I've seen so far though from Ben Simmons has been awesome. He's someone who people question about his shooting, but he's someone he's confident in his game. He doesn't take shot. He doesn't shoot 3-pointers. I think he shot 1 all year last year.
Well, he shot 1 in the preseason. He finally made it. Everyone
went crazy.
Which doesn't really matter because
Ben Simmons made it.
It was against some.
It was an international
team.
Oh yeah,
not an NBA team.
Exactly. But
we're not going to see him shoot soon.
Right. So he's someone though. I loved what I saw in their first game of the season against the Celtics. He was driving all game long. And then in their next game and against the Pistons, he was more of the point guard. So in the first game he was a scorer. He had 24 points. He was driving. And I loved it. It honestly looked like LeBron, which is a person that a lot of people have compared him to. Mm-hmm. And second game he became more of a passer. Only had 13 points, but he was dishing it out, getting the other guys involved. And they have started off 2-0. And I think, especially obviously they're a weird team because of how big they are. And, you think the NBA is going towards the small ball lineups. But I just think, especially in the East, which is looking very weak right now, that's the team that I would pick as the top of the East. And I think they will be a team that right now I would pick to go into the NBA Finals out of the Eastern Conference.
Come on. Yeah, I definitely disagree with that.
All right, who do you got out of the East?
The Sixers are good, but I think you have to just go with the Bucks based on what we saw from them last year. And the Sixers,
they're
although
a different team.
Their roster is fun and they're very big. Obviously, I think actually their size is going to be one of their their strengths this year. I mean, certainly, but I think it's maybe a year too early for them to really separate themselves from the pack as the best team. Simmons. I still think that you're able to stop them from. They're not a great. This team is not a great shooting team, which I think will be their downfall. If you look at their team last year, they had Redick, who at least he's a knockdown shooter. Tobias Harris is they still have him. They obviously lost Redick. They still have Harris, who's a good shooter. But other than that, you look at their roster, it's Harris. Richardson can knock down some shots. But other than that, if they're gonna continue to ask Joel Embiid to be shooting threes,
no, I definitely
don't see them as a team who's really one of the top. 3 teams in the NBA. Probably top, 5, 6, 7. I could give them that.
They're better than the
Bucks.
Definitely
not top 2.
They're number 1 team in the East right now. That's what I'll say.
All right, well, we'll see how that...
My number 3 team, I'm actually picking the Los Angeles Lakers, who, like we've already talked about earlier, I think anytime you give LeBron James a player a great psychic like Anthony Davis, last year he didn't have that, and the Lakers were not great. Now he's got Davis. This is who he wanted, and we've seen LeBron do this before, where he kind of latches on to his star, right? Him and Dwayne Wade, who are best friends. You saw him. That was his man. Even when he went to Cleveland, Kyrie, he created a good relationship with Kyrie. Although that didn't end the best way. They won a championship together, and the way I think I might argue, Davis might be the most talented guy like LeBron's played. At least he's the most talented big man, we could say, right? Look back, Kevin Love, who people
shout out.
People debate whether that was a good fit or not on the Cavaliers. Chris Bosh, who we loved, right? Good shooter, shot blocker, rebounder. He was a great glue guy. Because he took a step back, LeBron and Wade were able to lead that team. But
Davis is definitely
he's definitely not as talented as Anthony Davis. And I just think those two guys, obviously there's a lot of questions about the rest of their roster, but I do think that they will be, they're one of my top 3 teams. Clippers, Sixers, and I got
hate to disagree with you, but I definitely don't see the Lakers, and especially as we're talking about the regular season, I think, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think the Nuggets are definitely in the top 3 for the regular season. Last year, they kind of shocked everyone, came out, and they were won, I think it was it 56 or 50? They were in the high 50s.
Right, 57, I think.
57 wins, And Nikola Jokic he's something else. He's probably the best big man passer that we've ever seen. People have been comparing him to Sabonis, who played for the Blazers in like the 90s, I think, or the 80s. But that system that they run with him, and then Jamal Murray, who's someone who I think we talked about stock. I think his stock is certainly rising.
Yeah, he's a young player for sure.
They have some young players. Paul Millsap, he's older, he gets some injuries. I really like that team to make a run. Also because of the young players in Monte Morris, Malik Beasley, and then now Michael Porter Jr. off the bench. Who has he played it? I don't even know, but him, once he gets back this season,
right,
I think at some point, will be definitely a good addition for that team. So I think that team's actually my third team instead of the Lakers.
I like the Nuggets. I don't have them over the Rockets in the West, which I'll get to in a second.
That's going to be...
I like the Nuggets. Just my thing with them is, you look at their roster, right? A lot of young guys. Jokic is incredible. I don't think we've ever seen a player quite like him. But my thing with them is, you look at the first round of the playoffs last year, and the San Antonio Spurs...
They're just growing pains.
Took them, who were the 7th seed, took them to a 7-game series. And we really thought the Spurs were going to take them in that series. I certainly did. The Spurs were up 2-1 on them. And then, eventually the Nuggets reclaimed the lead.
I think that's a good experience for a young team like that. They were having the growing pains their first playoff series. The Spurs are just an organization who's been there before, a very experienced team. And I just think almost it says more about the Spurs than the Nuggets, if anything. But
I agree.
See.
Yeah.
This team's built for the regular season.
Yeah, they're sure a good regular season team. I just don't see them being better, in this West this year. The West is a lot deeper and more competitive, especially at the top. Lakers, Clippers, like we've talked about a lot. But someone I think this is my number 4 team right after the Lakers, the Rockets. I think people.
Big mistake.
I don't want to say sleeping on them because the team has 2 MVPs on their team, Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and no one's really. I wouldn't say we're sleeping on that team, but I just think it's shocking how very little we hear people talking about them coming into the season. I guess
it's a testament to how good the West is.
Right, they're in the shadow of the 2 LA teams, but the Rockets. If you look at what their roster is. So the past 2 years, Harden, I would argue, like we did last year, Alex, that Harden was the MVP last year. I'm okay with him giving it to Giannis, but Harden's season was incredible last year. And the year before that, he was the MVP. And they made it to the conference finals the past 2 years and only lost to, this historic Golden State Warriors team. Mm-hmm. And what did they do? They swapped old Chris Paul, who an older guy who's past his prime, for Russell Westbrook. And I just think... people always say, I just hate when I hear, there's only one ball. Like, these are just 2 great basketball players. I don't think they're going to have an issue just sharing the ball.
I think they will.
Westbrook, obviously, he's a guy who a lot of people have accused of, just caring about stats and with his triple-doubles in the past 2 seasons, which he's averaged a triple-double. But I think with Harden, it's someone that he played with in Oklahoma City when they were both younger. They're friends. I think because of that, it'll work. Similarly with, why people think Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant will work, which obviously Kevin Durant's injured. But I think they're friends on the court. You put them in the system, Mike D'Antoni's offense, they're running and gunning, and that's what Westbrook likes to do. The past few seasons, we haven't seen Westbrook on a great team. Like, he hasn't had another great player with him. Okay. Harden and Westbrook, with Clint Capella, a great rebounder, shot blocker, with all their shooters and defenders on that team, I think it's kind of surprising not more people are talking about that.
No, I strongly disagree with that. Definitely as far as your ranking. The fourth team is certainly the Bucks, and I'll talk about them. But first, just addressing the Rockets, this is a team that has, you're right, they have 2 MVP caliber players, but I mentioned this earlier about sometimes the fit is very important on teams, and these are the 2 guys who have had historically high usage ratings in past seasons. These are guys who essentially play the same position, have had their same role on their teams in the past, and have been successful in the same exact spots. So for them, I know that, as you say, they're replacing old beat up Chris Paul with young Westbrook. I think although, Harden and Westbrook seem to be better friends and just will get along better off the court than Chris Paul and Harden did, as we saw, it fizzled out at the end there. Definitely, I think that Chris Paul and Harden are actually a better fit on the court as opposed to, Westbrook and Harden, who Westbrook can't really shoot, and if he can't play off the ball in that Houston Rockets offense, it's not going to be that good. And
you're definitely right. He needs to improve in shooting, but listen, he's got other shooters on there that the athlete that he is, with all the energy that he plays with. Yeah, as long as he doesn't take some of the ill-advised shots that he did take in Oklahoma City, I think, in the right offense, which I think Mike D'Antoni definitely has for them, better than what I think Billy Donovan had in Oklahoma City.
Sure.
I think Westbrook will be a great piece to add into that offense.
I think it would be, honestly. Obviously, I don't think it would be better without Harden. Definitely not. I would never say that. But honestly, I think Westbrook would be better in this system without Harden. Because imagine it's Westbrook running and gunning with these guys.
They're going to be doing that with James Harden as well. And I think both those guys can play point guard. Both those guys can be scorers and play shooting guard. And so my number 5 team, like we talked about earlier, I think the East is weaker than the West. And my first four teams, Clippers, Sixers, Lakers, and Rockets, 3 of those 4 are Western teams. But I will give my 5th spot to the Milwaukee Bucks. Do have the reigning MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who looks great. And I'm still shocked at the fact that they were up 2-0 against Toronto, and Toronto came back and won 4 straight games and went to the finals. I thought Milwaukee was going to be the team to dethrone the Warriors, but coming back into this season, I just think they're not as strong as they were last year, and it's because of one key guy that they lost, Malcolm Brogdon, who was a 50-40-90 guy, which means shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. He was a good defender, and he was someone who, when he was injured towards the end of the season, they definitely missed him, and they dropped some games because of it. They replaced him with Wesley Matthews, who is a guy, he's a veteran player. He's made some great shots for him, but he's coming off of, 2 years ago, since he tore his ACL, I just don't think he's been the same player.
ACL or Achilles? I think it's Achilles, no?
I'm pretty sure it's his ACL.
Oh, okay.
But, Chris Middleton, still great. Brooke Lopez, great. And now they got Robin Lopez. They got, the twin brothers on their team, which is hilarious. I also...
Very different players, too.
I think I love this team, but they're not as great as last year. One thing I will say is they had a great win against the team I just had at number 4, against the Rockets, a comeback win. And
exactly. How you gonna put the Rockets ahead of the Bucks? The Bucks.
I just still think long term. Yeah. Okay. So if they're in the East, yeah, maybe the Bucks could win more games. But I just think as a team, the Rockets better. But one thing I did love to see is Giannis fouled out at the end of that game against the Rockets, and you kind of said to yourself, all right, Harden's going to take over here. The Rockets, without Giannis on the floor, the Rockets will be able to put this one away. But somehow, some way, Brooke Lopez, Wesley Matthews, Bledsoe, all these guys, Ersan Ilyasova hit a few clutch baskets. They found a way to score without Giannis. So, honestly, that told me a lot, and that was an impressive win that they pulled out. And I do think that they'll be the second best team in the East after the 76ers.
Yeah, so obviously, I already kind of disagreed with you before. I think they should be the fourth team, and I also think they're better than the Sixers, who I probably wouldn't put until maybe later in the top 5 or top, 10. But I definitely think that they're better than the Lakers. I think they're probably better than they're definitely better than the Rockets as well. And I think that this team just definitely is going to go as Giannis goes. In the first, I don't know if they played 2 or 3 games. They beat the Rockets, as we just said, and they lost to the Heat. But both games, Giannis has had foul trouble and he's fouled out. So
yeah, it's interesting.
I just think that's not gonna happen all the time. Like Giannis he's gonna be better, and I think he's someone who's still improving. Last year he was the MVP, and I think this is a guy who we're gonna see be even better this year. As far as I just think consistency, and maybe he's gonna develop more of a jump shot. You won't be able to completely just sag off him every time he's at the top of the key.
He is shooting better so far in the first few games.
And I like their team. I like their bench and their role players. Although they lost Malcolm Brogdon, who's a huge guy for them. They picked up Kyle Korver, who's a great shooter. I mean, he's getting old, but they also
he's like
Pat
Korver's got to
Connaughton.
be like 40 now.
he still hits those threes.
They
got Pat Connaughton, who I think we'll see. He could be a most improved player candidate, I think. And then also Wes Matthews, like he's not the best, but he's a good person, I think, for that system. So I don't really see any drop off from last year. And
do they win 60 games?
Maybe not 60, but they could get to 58, 59.
Maybe, yeah, with how weak the bottom of the East is. All right, Alex, we got a few minutes left. Really quickly, what was your performance of the week? First week of the NBA season, who impressed you the most? Single player.
I mean, I guess, I'm going to have to shout out Kyrie, who he's gone,
Uncle
especially
Drew.
this summer, leaving the Celtics, gotten a lot of hate, and honestly, from me included, and just the whole situation with the Celtics. But he's someone who just, when I watch him play, I can never really root against him, because he's honest. He probably has one of my, his game is one of my favorites in the NBA. The way he plays. And so performance of the week was against the Timberwolves on opening night. He had 50 points, and he went off. And then that last play, I was watching. I'm like, John, you gotta.
He hit the shot. They went into overtime.
And then but then the last shot,
and then I don't know what they were down by 1.
They were down 1, and he I forget I don't remember who's guarding him, but he does that play where he looked like he was just in the park messing around. He did kind of like a spin move, and he fell. He lost balance. He fell over. On the ground. He's able to get his balance back, stand back up, and get. It honestly looked like a very good shot that he got off.
Oh man, if he had made that,
if he made that 52
points,
for a game winner, that'd be honestly one of the best performances I've seen.
It was. I saw it. 50 was the best performance of a guy in his first game with the team. Right, his first game as a net, and he had 50 points.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they lost it to the Timberwolves.
Speaking of Kyrie and the Nets, how do you think they're going to be this season, though?
I think I'm actually kind of shocked that they haven't been doing too well so far. I thought if we replace D'Angelo Russell with Kyrie Irving, I thought they'd be better than they would be last year. But like I said, the East is very weak. They'll definitely be in the playoffs. That's what I see.
Yeah, they should be, but nothing really else. Nothing too crazy. No conference finals until they get Durant back. All right, so now to wrap up with the last minute, starting a new segment that we're going to end our shows on, the Safe Pick.
Let's go.
Safe as in SAYF instead of safe,
And guess what? It's SAFE too. All right, my safe pick of the week. Dolphins plus 13.5 points on Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are tanking. This is true. The Miami Dolphins have been horrible this year. But last week, we only lost to the Buffalo Bills by 10 points. The Buffalo Bills are currently a playoff team. They're in the wild card. I believe their record's about 5-2 right now. And giving us 13.5, all these lines, that's too much. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not that strong. We will lose by less than 14 to this team. If you're gambling, That's your safe pick.
You're in Vegas. Go put some money on the Dolphins.
Dolphins
baby.
plus 13.5. Book it. Monday Night Football.
Anyway, that's all we have time for tonight.
Thank you for listening.
great
to our
to be
first
back.
episode. We're back. The NBA's back. Peace has been restored.
That's right.
Everything is right with the world.
The Heat are good again.
Let's go.
Thank you. We'll see you next week on Double Take. I'm Alex.
And I'm John.
Good night.